Hello and welcome back to the Meraki Cardmaker Connect virtual retreat. My name is Lynn and I hope you've been enjoying our retreat weekend so far. We kicked off this retreat yesterday with 6 amazing classes. If you weren't able to join us, don't worry because everything is available on replay here on the Crafty Meraki YouTube channel. In fact, there's a playlist with all 3 sessions so you can easily find all classes in one spot. This is the day 2 session of our Cardmaker Connect retreat, and we have another 4 amazing workshops coming up. Our instructors are crafting with the exclusive retreat bundle, specially curated by Bindu herself. If you didn't get a kit, don't worry. Feel free to craft along with what you have in your stash. Our instructors are teaching fabulous tips and tricks that can be applied to any product and any occasion. If you prefer, you can always just sit back, watch these workshops, and chat along with our fabulous community. You can always watch this back on replay and follow along with our crafters later at your own pace. Before we get started, I hope you'll do me the favor of liking this video and sharing it out to your socials, so even more crafters can join in on the fun. Our instructors are also in the live chat, so if you are watching live, please do say hello and let us know where you are watching from. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask in the live chat or leave us a comment if you are watching the replay. Our instructors will do their very best to answer you. If you've been inspired by what you've seen here today, I hope you will share your makes with us on Facebook. The Meraki Crafty Corner is a fun, welcoming community where you can share your projects and show us what you've made. Without further ado, let's get started.
Hey everyone, it's Joy here for Crafty Meraki's virtual retreat, and I'm super excited that I get to share with you how to make your die cuts pop. But first, I'm going to tell you that in a second, but let's start with our foiling. I'm using the Mink machine. I have trimmed down a piece of the Effortless Shimmer paper, and it's a cute banner background. I trimmed that down to an A2 size, and then I am using a glimmering gold fancy foil to foil this background. This is going to be what helps to show off all of our beautiful dies. So I love to ink blend on die cuts. And so I like to show other people how to do that because it's so easy, but you can give your die cut such detail with just blender brushes. And being now that there's different sizes of blender brushes, that is really super helpful. So I'm going to show you just a few different ways to do that with different size blender brushes. I let that sit for a few seconds to let it cool down, and let's peel back this beautiful foil, and we're going to have our stunning background that's going to show off all of our dies. Look at how pretty that is. I love this. So then now I am going to be using the Festive Delight dies. This is a beautiful tiered cake. There's flowers, there's fruit, there's candles, and so I'm going to die cut everything from white cardstock because again I'm going to show you how to ink blend on this to really give some dimension and make them stand out. At the end of my video, I do show my 2 samples of other ways that you can ink blend to make your die cuts pop. So you'll definitely want to see how those look. So I'm going to run all of my images through the die cut machine. I've got my small layer of cake, my larger layer of cake, the yummy frosting, and then there is the fruit. I'm using the cherries and strawberries and then flowers and leaves, and I'm going to die cut all of that multiple times with the exception of the cake. Okay, let's get to the ink blending. I'm starting with a larger blender brush on my largest piece of base cake, and I'm using Spun Sugar Distress Oxide inks. All of my inks will be that. And I like to start on the outside because I do tend to like my outsides darker, and then I work my way in. I also start off of my die cut, so you can see I kind of start off onto my work surface. And then, so most of that ink is going to be on your edges, and by the time you work your way to the center, a lot of your ink is already going to be off of your blender brush. So on these pieces of cake, you can see that it is light in the center and dark around the edges. Now I'm going to come in with a darker color, and I want to be really careful when I'm ink blending the edges of this because I don't want to over ink blend and get rid of that beautiful spun sugar. So the next color that I'm going to be using is the Kitsch Flamingo, and I thought I was going to use a smaller blender brush, but for this size I don't need to. But here I am really starting off the cardstock, so further away on my work surface, and I'm just letting the edge of my brush hit the edge of the cake, and look at how that turned out. So you get this really kind of sharp edge of the color of ink, and then you get a nice little soft blend as you go in. So I blended less onto my cardstock and more onto my work surface, if that makes sense. So I'm going to do that for this large piece here, and I'm not worried about ink blending the top because we are not even going to see that. But I still have that nice light spun sugar in the center. Now I have the frosting here. I'm also going to do that in a pink, and I'm going to start with the Kitsch Flamingo. Then my darker color will be the picked raspberry. So I am just going to lightly ink blend this whole both pieces of frosting here with the Kitsch Flamingo. I don't want to go really dark. I do want to be on the lighter side because we are going to add the detail with the picked raspberry. And I will definitely be using a smaller detail blender brush because I'm going to be able to get into all those little drippy areas much easier. So let's bring in that darker color now. Now we're going to add our detail. And when you're doing this, you can add it wherever you like, wherever you think you want it to be darker. I tend to like to do the edges that way, and then the center is usually lighter, but you know, you can choose your preference and how you want to do it. But I'm just dipping it in the ink and going around those edges, making sure to not over ink with this darker color because I still want to have that nice light color. But look at that now. That has a ton of interest. When you're looking at it, it's not just a flat one note kind of die cut. Now you can just really add a lot of interest to it. So I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm still starting off onto my work surface and then ink blending onto my piece, my little die cut piece here. So let's do the bottom the same way. This is really super simple, but really makes a huge impact on your cards. And I really want those edges dark. I do like a good contrast, but look at how pretty that piece of cake is. Now we have our die cut flowers, and I'm going to do these in 2 tones. I'm just going to lightly ink blend these 3 flowers with squeezed lemonade, and then we will come back in with a darker color of the scattered straw. Now for this, I am not going to ink blend the edges. I want to ink blend and add the interest to the center. So I'm just making sure I get a nice good coverage with my squeezed lemonade, and then I can use a detail blender brush with that scattered straw, and I'm going to add the detail again right to the centers of the flowers, and this is going to give us extra detail. So the cake, we did it on the outside. Now the flowers, we're going to do it on the inside. And I start off light and kind of see how dark I want to go before I go all in. If that makes sense, I don't want to overdo, but you can already see that now these flowers already have more interest than just coloring them with one ink color. And this doesn't take much longer to do to get this extra detailed look. Isn't that pretty? Okay, so then we have 2 other flowers. I'm going to do spiced marmalade and dried marigold. So we're going to start with the dried marigold because that's the lighter color. So I'm going to ink blend, again, just getting some color on here, but I don't want to go too dark. And I'm going to come in with a larger blender brush because it's just a little bit easier. And then bringing in that spiced marmalade to the center is going to add more of that detail. And I'm doing basically kind of tone on tone, but you could do different colors. You know, you could do pinks and yellows and purples and pinks. You could do all different kinds of colors, but look at how pretty that center looks. Then we have our small leaves, and I decided to put them on a piece of tape because they were just so little, and I'm just adding a base color. And this is the salvaged patina. And I'll show you how I'm going to detail these in just a second. So now that I have my color on there, I'm going to add ink to one side and kind of the bottom. But it's very concentrated because I'm dipping it and then just brushing it along the edge. And you can see there that that has more detail than the leaves sitting on the tape. So I'm not going to show all of these, but it's really super simple. Just pick an area and just concentrate the ink there. Then we have our cherry leaves. I'm going to do this a bit differently. At the base of the leaf that goes into the stems, that's where it's going to be the darkest. And then I can lightly blend out from there. So the tip of the leaf is going to be lighter than the base of the leaf. But right now I want to get a lot of that, just the color on there, but still keeping in mind that the base of the leaf is going to be darker. And this is just with one color, just like the other leaf. This is just one color, but you can still add dimension and interest even with one color of ink. Just start off lighter, then you can come back in and add it a little bit darker. So right there at that base, I'm going to go quite heavy. And now we have just some really nice interest, and it looks like a two-toned leaf, but you did it with one color. Okay, now these little tiny leaves here, I just did it with a cracked pistachio. I just colored them. They were so tiny, there really wasn't a point in adding a lot of detail to it. But if I was going to, I would have kept the centers dark and the tips would have been light because it's just easy to ink blend it that way. But these are the tops to our strawberries, and they're so super tiny and cute. Then we have our cherries, and I started to ink blend those with festive berries. And you can see though, even though I'm ink blending this, I have lighter and darker areas. Some spots are heavier, some spots are lighter, and I like that on purpose. Then we can come in with the lumberjack plaid and our detail blender brush and go darker in certain areas. I do also have my brush tilted to the side a little bit, so that way the edge of the paper will catch my brush and it will give you that sharp edge of color on the edge of your paper there. But I'm just going to add this darker area here. But look at already, that already has a bunch of interest to it because the way I ink blended it to start off with, I made sure it wasn't even on purpose, and then adding this nice shadow area. Let's finish up our last cherry here, and then we can work on the strawberries. And the strawberries, we're going to go a little more pink. I thought it would be fun to do the festive berries. Oh no, this is picked raspberry, excuse me. And then we will do the festive berries to add that a little more of that red. But again, just not putting a perfect ink on. I want it to have a little bit of lighter areas and darker areas. Now we can come in with the festive berries and add our detail to the bottom and the side. And I like to change up a little bit on the strawberries where I want to have that darker area. But now you can see how much better they look with just a little extra shading. So we have 3 more strawberries here. We can finish ink blending. And again, my brush is kind of tilted to the side to catch the edge of the paper, which really catches a lot of that ink. And always starting off your work surface or off your paper on your work surface and then ink blending it. Now I'm going to speed some of this up of just adhering the pieces together. But we've got our little strawberry tops here. And I tend to over die cut when I'm die cutting things. I think I had a couple cherries left or something. But I like to have extra pieces, because if I do need it, I don't want to have to go back and do everything over again. I feel like that takes longer than just doing it when you're already doing it. But look at how cute these cherries are. I love this. Now in this die cut for the cake, the Festive Delight, there is a cake stand that I die cut from a gold mirror cardstock because I just thought that would stand out nicely, especially because we have that gold background. Let's adhere our cake pieces. This is the cute little frosting, but look at those cakes. Look at how much dimension there is there. Then we have the gorgeous, gorgeous shimmer paper. I feel like that was a tongue twister. And I'm going to die cut the candles from this. I'm only going to use one candle, but it die cuts two and they're two different sizes. So I'm going to do this pink here because there's so much pink on this card. And then on another sheet of that shimmer paper, there's a little bit of this kind of yellowy gold color. So I'm going to trim that. I'm going to die cut the candles one more time. And this is going to be our flame. So I can run that through the die cut machine. And then once that comes out, I'm just going to use my scissors to snip the flame off. And then I can adhere that to the candle that I'm going to use for all of our pieces. But you can see all of our pieces are already adhered together. And then we can just get this card laid out. And again, I'll speed up the video for that part. But let's adhere our cute little flame to our candle. We can just pop that in place. And I love that it's all shimmery and glittery. Then I'm using these sentiments from the EAP cupcakes that come in your kit. And this says celebrate your special day. And I am just going to quickly fussy cut this out. And this is going to be our sentiment for our card here. So now that that's done, let's put this card together. So I have foam adhesive strips, 2mm size, behind the cake and the cake stand that we die cut from gold mirror cardstock and from that cute little candle. And I'm going to offset this to the left on my card. I just like that look. And then we can pop our sentiment down here. So usually I put my sentiments on last, but this time I knew I wanted to build around my sentiment because I'm going to have tons of flowers and fruit all over this background, and I will have some below the sentiment to kind of hug that around the sentiment and at the base of the cake stand, which I think is really cute. So I did foam adhesive and liquid adhesive. So the liquid adhesive will adhere to that cake stand. So when you're putting a card together, even like when you're decorating your home, and you want to start with your bigger objects first, and then you work down to your smallest details last. So essentially my flowers and the fruit are the biggest things besides the cake of the design element. So I'm going to get those in place first. And then I can start bringing in the fruit and deciding where I want to tuck those in. I knew I wanted the flowers to mainly be up front, and then we can come in with some fruit. So we've got cherries here at the top. We're going to add a strawberry. I will need a small piece of foam adhesive because it's going to hang off of the cake, and the cake is popped up with foam adhesive. So I'm going to place that down and a little bit of liquid glue. Then I will come in with those small leaves in a little bit, but let's get another strawberry. I think I add a couple more cherries and about 3 more strawberries. So I want some fruit here. And I kind of like to go, if you're watching, I'm kind of going at a diagonal too when I'm putting things in place. There's something about that that's visually pleasing to the eye, and odd numbers are visually pleasing. So I did 5 flowers because those really stand out because they're different colors than everything else that's pink and red. So I really wanted to make sure those were an odd number. Then I'm going to lay that cherry out at the bottom, and that's going to bring your eye over to the right at the bottom since everything else is kind of left aligned on the card. So you have your sentiment and some of that decoration at the bottom on the right hand side. Now we can come in with all of those little leaves and tuck them around and fill in the areas. This also brings a nice fun pop of color that's different than all the other colors. This is that salvaged patina. And I'm just going to tuck that in everywhere I can. I think I did use all of the leaves, or almost all. Now I'm going to work at the bottom here and get a few of those or a couple of those in there. And now we have this nice big full design, and I love how this is turning out. So let me add that flower again. And then I like to add a gel pen highlight to my fruit and to the flowers. The flowers I'm going to follow along in the center where there's already like those embossed lines. I'm just going to add a little bit of white, but to the fruit, to the edge of the frosting, it just adds a little something extra to your dies. It really makes them come to life. And then I'm going to use a white pops of color for the centers of the flowers, just to bring in a little bit of white, and I think that looks really, really nice. So let's take a look at this up close, and then I will show you my other two samples. But look at how that cake stands out. Look at the fruit. It looks like there's life there. They're not flat. It's not one-dimensional. There's definitely interest there. Okay, this card is one of my samples. I ink blended the sentiment, and I wanted to ink blend that with 3 colors, and I did it to match these cute cupcakes that come in your kit. So I did the yellow, the green, and the orange, and that turned out really a lot of fun and super simple for a sentiment. This one I started with a piece of yellow cardstock and then ink blended with a pink ink and just ombre'd up, and that's a really simple way to ink blend and make your die cuts pop. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this retreat video. I hope that I was able to help you learn something or discover a new technique or whatever, and I just want to say thank you so very much for watching and hope you guys have a great day.
Hey everyone, it's Erica's turn for the retreat. I hope you guys are having a great time and learning lots of stuff and playing along. If you want to play along with me, you are going to need a few of the things that will be listed in the sort of little supply list. That was the word I was looking for. So we are going to use the celebrate word die. We're going to use the happy birthday. We are going to use the party balloons. We're also going to be using the cupcakes, EAP, and the coordinating die cuts. So on top of that, you should already be aware of the fact that you're going to need some card bases and a spare piece of cardstock, a bit of metallic cardstock, and some black or gray, depending on how dark you want to go. We are also going to use some distress oxides. We have Salty Ocean, or these are the ones I'm going to use. Salty Ocean, Wilted Violet, Picked Raspberry, Ripe Persimmon, Squeezed Lemonade, and Mowed Lawn. There will also be a little bit of bling, of course. So I have gone for the Golden Illusion because that is one of my favorites. But with that all in mind, we are going to get creating. Oh, I did forget. You're going to need, oh, well, if you want to make exactly like me, you're going to need a little bit of metallic watercolors as well, because we're going to do some fun splattering. But now we are going to start by ink blending our panel first of all, because that is going to need to sort of settle down.
and all of that good jazz. So we are gonna get all our inks out, and we are gonna start. Maybe we're gonna go this way like that. Okay, so I'm gonna start with squeezed lemonade right at the bottom, and we're gonna go in. We're gonna go in quite heavy because sometimes it's nice with a little bit of a like a pastel blend, but we're gonna go in quite heavy because we want a kapow of color. So nice, smooth, round movements, and that will do for now. What we're going to do is we're going to leave this open, but we're going to move on to ripe persimmon. And the reason we are leaving this open is so that we can go back in and blend back and forth, because we want a really nice, smooth blend. So here we're going to go in with our orange, ripe persimmon. And we're going to go back and forth here, add down quite a lot of color. And I think I need to re-ink my ink pad here. We are going to just smooth over that by going in with extra much. Okay, so now we're going to go back in with, we're going to load up our ink blending brush again. And we're going to go in over this. And do this as many times as you need in order to create a blend that you're happy with. But that I'm very happy with. So we're going to close the lid on this one, and we are going to move on. So now this is going to be our kind of backup one. So we're going to go in with picked raspberry, and again, load her up and straight to paper. Round, round, round movements. So we don't get big blotches. And another ink pad that needs re-inking. I probably should have checked this before starting to film, but you live and learn. Hopefully you would have caught my note in the supply list about checking your ink pads before starting this, but if you haven't, don't worry, we can be in the same dry ink pad club. So here we go. We're gonna blend, blend, blend. And that is looking quite good. Yes. Might go in a little bit more here, there at the bottom. Now, another thing to bear in mind as well as when you're ink blending is that you do need to let the colors kind of sit and also dry a little bit. So even if you think it looks a little bit blotchy at times, it's not necessarily going to finish looking like that. You do need to let it dry a little bit before you will see the complete result. So now we're going to go in with our wilted violet. And again, you know what, we are actually going to grab a little finger saver. So this is just a little bit of acetate with some post-it tape so I can see where it is. And we're going to put this on top of our ink blending that we've already done so we don't get fingerprints on that. Because I have really oily fingers and that tends to leave marks on my ink blending, and that's not what we want. No. So this is a super cheap hack that you can make yourself just to have on hand in your craft room. So it's just one of those little things that kind of make life just a little bit easier at times. And you know, no ink on my fingers either, so bonus. No smudges on my ink blending and no inky fingers. Right, so here we're going to go in and blend up into that wilted violet. We're going to add quite a lot here to really get a nice smooth blend there. And then we're finished with the picked raspberries. We're going to put her away. And we're going to move this over and we're going to go in with our salty ocean. This is such a dreamy blue. Such a dreamy blue. So we're going to go in heavy. Oh, look at this blue. I mean, it's just gorgeous, isn't it? I mean, I know blue is my favorite color, so I do tend to go a little bit crazy for the blues, but ooh, when they look like this, who can blame me? So pretty. Okay, we are nearly done. So here, because the purple is quite dark, what we're going to do is we're actually going to blend downwards a little bit rather than upwards so that the purple doesn't kind of take over, unless you prefer more purple, then you do you. It's just one of those things. Right, so now, actually, I went ahead of myself. We're going to go in with our mowed lawn right at the top here. And this is our final color. So hopefully we're going to get like a nice little turquoise there in between the blue and the green as well. So we're going to go in heavy at the top. And then we're just going to gently drag that down into our blue, not too far. And then we're going to go back in with a little bit more of this. Actually, we need a little bit more there at the top here. Like that. Okay, there we go. And then a little bit more blue. Blend, blend, blend. And there we go. That is our first background panel done. So I'm going to clean up here quickly. And we are going to also spritz our table to make sure that we don't get all this ink on all our other papers. So this is a repurposed shampoo bottle. So it's got a pump, so it's super easy. And then you just fill it up with clean water, or you can put a little bit of soap in there, I suppose, if you want to. And then you just spritz as need, and ta-da, nice and clean work surface again. So now we're going to take this one, and we are also going to take a card base, and these are both going to get spritzed with a bit of gold, because gold is life, sparkle is life, so we are going to do just that. I'm going to be using my very well-loved Gansang Tambi Starry Colors color palette. This one has got some fantastic golds in it. You can see that my blue gold is actually completely gone. My yellow gold is almost completely gone. And, or is this 905? Yeah. Yes, so what we're going to do is we're going to use our champagne gold, and we are, again, if you can hear some woofing, I'm really sorry about that. We're going to use our bottle again. We're going to spritz a little bit of water in there. We're going to take our paintbrush, and we're going to swirl this around quite generously and for quite a while, so that all this water in here is nice and goldy, or full of pigment, I should say. Goldy is a name, not a word. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're not going to be crazy and make a mess everywhere. We're going to take a splatter box, and we're going to put these two in here, both at the same time. Yes. And then we're going to take this. We're going to swirl, swirl, swirl a little bit more. And then we're going to just the first one, because it's going to be quite a lot of water, we're going to just tap off to the side, and then we're going to gently tap to create that gorgeous splatter. And then a little bit more. Then let's have a little progress look. Let's see if we're happy or we need more splatter. I think this is pretty good. I'm super tempted to add more though. But let's have a look at this one first as well. This one probably does need a little bit more, I think. You know what? I'm going to take it as a sign. We're going to add more to both. Because why not? You know, it's a celebration. It's going to be birthday cards or celebrate cards. So you can't go too sparkly when it's a celebration, can you? Okay, now I think we have it. So this, yes, very nice and sparkly. I like it. Lots of different sizes there. And same with this one. Oh, this is great. Ooh, sparkle, sparkle. Okay, so now we are going to put these aside. We're going to let them dry off to the side a little bit. And we're going to create some space. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take our black or whatever color you decide on, and our gold. I choose gold. You go for whatever metallic color you want. And we are going to start die cutting our background one and also our word dies. So I'm probably going to do all of the words, like both of them, and then we will see which one goes on what. But we're going to finish off with 3 different kind of looks today. So we will see exactly what ends up on what. So here we're going to, I'll tell you what, we're going to start with our gold one first, actually. And, oh, I might have turned this down a little bit too small. Oh no, I picked the wrong card piece. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so we're going to get our die cutting machine out, and we are going to do all of the die cutting and layering. Okay, because I'm having a bit of a warping problem at the moment with my plates, I am actually going to do the die cutting like upside down. So normally I would put everything down facing that way, but we are going to do it upwards today. Anything to get out of actually fixing my plates. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna roll this through. And here, we're going to try to keep, oh, that's not going to work. Okay, there we go. So, we're going to, we were going to try to not make a mess, but that did not work. So, we're just going to embrace it. But look at that. Oh, it's so gorgeous. Ooh, okay, one done. So, what we are going to do is we're going to keep some of these balloons. And just pop them to the side. And then the rest of this, unfortunately, is going to go in the bin. And then we are going to do our black piece. So we're going to do the same thing here. So, oops. Sometimes you get these little pieces that kind of stick. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to pop the die cut facing upwards and the cardstock as well, and then we're going to run this through. Here we're going to do the same thing. We're going to keep some of these balloons. Even if we don't end up using them today, they might come in handy another day. So that is why we're going to keep those. Okay, look at that. So cool. Okay, now I'm going to pop out all of the extra pieces here. Because I just did have another idea for yet another card. I know there's no slowing the roll on this one. Okay, so we're gonna take another piece of black cardstock, and we are probably, we're gonna have to do it this way. We're gonna have to do it this way. Okay, never mind. Okay, roll. So here, the idea that just kind of popped into my head now was to use this black outline over the gold cardstock like that. But then we probably should keep all of these pieces as well. So it might be a little bit of a puzzle, but it could totally be worth that. But we'll see if we've got time to do that later on. Otherwise, I will finish that card and I will show it to you at the end. Right, I took a little break just to clean up because it was getting a little bit overwhelming. So if you need to stop and clean up, apologies, I should have thought about that and actually kept it in the video. But here we are. We are going to crack on and we're going to die cut our word dies. So I'm going to separate them and we are going to do all of these, and we're going to do, I think, the words themselves, or the letters themselves, I should say, in, oh, I was so sure I was going to say gold, and then all of a sudden my brain kind of went, no, maybe black, and then do the shadow outline, white and gold. But I'll tell you what we are going to do. And this is a little bit crazy, but crazy is kind of my style. We are going to do all of them. And then we're going to puzzle, and then we're going to decide after. Because who needs the pressure to decide right this very second what we're going to do? Nobody. So we're going to start, and we're going to do the black letters themselves first. Look at that. Cuts like butter. Okay. So we're gonna gently poke these out if they don't decide to hop out themselves already. So I'm gonna use some pointy tweezers and just kind of poke through the holes here. A little gentle poke is all you need, and the paper should release from the die cut quite easily, like that. And then, of course, you got to make sure that you keep all of the pieces as well. So, although it feels like we're missing an L. Nope, there it is. Okay. So celebrate. We're going to do the same with the happy. But we're going to do that off to the side here, so it goes straight onto our work desk rather than having to move them around. Okay. So we're going to again poke through and get all of the little bits out that we don't want. And then we're going to keep all of these little letters for our layering. Okay. Now we are going to do, I tell you what, we are going to do gold, I think, first. So, because again, it's celebrations. We are being happy, 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 and we're celebrating. So a touch of gold is never a bad idea. When it comes to the actual letters themselves, I do find that the black does tend to stand out a bit better no matter what you have as your kind of shadow base. So I am very drawn to using black for the actual letters themselves, unless I know I'm going to use black for the shadow part. So that is that's actually quite useful if you're having like a very all white card, which I am not very good at, so I don't do that very often. But it's just one of those things, you know, try a few ways and see what you like, because often we think that we're going to like something and then we put it together and we're like, not so sure about that. I have had that happen to me more often than not. So always try a few things and see what you like. You don't have to settle on the first one. And if you don't end up using the first one that you make, then you have one for another time when you do need to make a card in a hurry. Now, so with these, what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in here a little bit. And we're going to do our celebrate first. Oops. Right. So it's always a good idea to line up your letters in the order that they need to go on. And we are going to use a little bit of liquid glue and also some pointy tweezers. So with these, you're going to want to try to add as little glue as you possibly can get away with, because we don't want any of it to sort of stick out and make a mess. And I think I've already actually managed to add a little bit too much. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a leftover piece of cardstock and we're going to just dab off the excess here like that, so that it doesn't make a mess on our actual shadow word die here. And then we're going to try to place it where it goes, especially when you're using mirrored cardstock. Remember that this is quite slippery paper, so don't squeeze too hard. And also be aware of the fact that these will slip quite easily. Now, because there's a little bit of glue left over here, what we're going to do is we're just going to dip that. We're going to dip our E into this, and this is actually going to be sufficient enough to stick that down. So if you do find it hard to add just a little bit of glue, what you can do is you can take your liquid glue, you just make a little swirl. You don't have to make it like very big, and don't add too much, because again, we're trying to add just enough to make our letter stick. And then you just gently dab and place like so. And we're going to gently dab and place. There we go. Okay, there might just be enough left here that we can do one more letter, and then we're going to have to top up. Oops. So a little bit more in a bit of a swirly fashion, and we're going to grab our letter. And another thing to do is don't like grab it at the corner or the end of a letter. So if you hold it in the middle, you can dip the top and the bottom quite easily, rather than trying to add more glue. If you put your letter down, this is what I mean about the paper being kind of slippery as well. So you put it down and then you realize, ooh, this is sticking up because there's no glue on there. So grab it in the middle, dab it into the glue, and then place gently and just hold it in place for a second or two, so that the glue gets a chance to kind of grab onto the paper there. And then we're going to need to do a little bit more glue just for the last few letters, and dip the top and the bottom and place gently and hold in place like that. And then we're going to try to get our last letter on there before everything of this dries up too much. And then you might need to go in and just press down some of these again, and just a tiny bit more. But that is our first one done. And I already want to celebrate. This looks fantastic. Cool. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do our birthdays as well. So we're going to do in the same way. So we're going to line up our letters Oops. And the little eye, or the little dot on top of the eye, that's gonna probably be a little bit tricky, but don't worry. Got a little trick for that as well. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so a little bit more glue. Swirly swirl, like that. And we're gonna grab our big B. And we're gonna dab that sticky out bit, and also the top of the letter, the bottom. And we're going to gently place and hold. And then we're gonna grab our eye. We're gonna dip the bottom and the top, drag a little bit so that we get enough glue there. And then we're gonna place this like that. Now for the dot, we're also gonna make sure that we get this on straight. For the dot, we're gonna dab just the tiniest bit there. And then we're gonna leave that to cure just for a tiny little while. And we're gonna do our next letter in the meantime. And the reason we're letting this cure is so that when we do put that dot on top, it's not gonna then go smoosh. Okay, so we're taking our little eye, or the dot. I keep saying the eye, the dot, and we are ready. There we go. Okay, now we're gonna need to top up our glue again, and at this point it might be a better idea to actually start a new spot. And dip the top and the bottom. And again, with our next letter, we're just gonna forge on and get this done. Now, this is the sort of thing that, yes, it takes a little while. So if you're in a hurry to make a card, this is not the way to go. Definitely not. Stamp up a sentiment, put it on your card, and you're done. But if you have time, one of the things that I like doing is sitting down, die cutting a bunch of these, and then, you know, either listen to some true crime or watch Disney. I have a wide range. And just sit down and glue these together and take your time, have some fun with it, try different colors and combinations, and just make a whole bunch of them so that when the time comes and you need to make a card, and especially when you need to make one fast, you have a fantastic range of these to choose from, and your card would look amazing. Because this is the sort of thing, especially as card makers, we're like, we know that this takes time. This is not a 5-second job. So definitely worth doing. Okay, right, so there was a little bit much glue on the white there, but we're gonna set this aside and dry, and we're gonna finish off our happy. Oops, okay. These little fellas are very happy and jolly and dancing all over the place. Okay, now, so a little bit more glue. And again, dip any out sticky bits to make sure that they definitely stick to your shadow, and gently place and hold in place. So this is where tweezers are kind of handy. If you have letters like this and both ends are sticking up a little bit, spread your tweezers and press them down, and there you go, all set. So we have just a few more letters to go, and then we are done with this portion. Then we're going to do a little bit more die cutting, but then we're actually going to get cutting of the cupcakes themselves, which are already colored. Now, I did color one of these sets, so I'm not going to be using those ones today. I'm going to be using somebody else's. And I have a fairly good idea of whose I'm going to use. Being a bit of a rainbow queen, I definitely want some colorful, happy ones for my cards. So we are going to have some fun with them. Oh, and also if you have pets like I do, make sure that you don't have little helpers join in. There's been a fair few little pet hairs I've had to rescue off camera here, trying to keep it professional, but also at the same time I do have 4 doggies, so I am very outnumbered when it comes to the dog hairs. They are just all over the place. But there are our word dice finished. So we have a happy birthday and we have a celebrate. Right, we are going to move on to our cupcakes, and whilst I'm pretty sure I'm going to be using these ones colored by Brenda. I mean, she's just so incredibly amazing. I feel like I kind of have to use these because these are very on brand for me. But these are also so, actually, sorry, no, that's not the ones I was talking about. I colored these ones. These ones are so cute with the pink and the yellows, very springy. But oh, these are also so good. I'm very torn as to which ones to use, but I'm gonna go with my first choice, which is the rainbows, or the rainbow wrappers, I should say. So yes, and we're going to cut out everything. We are. So stars and the little flag. And the flowers. Maybe we'll have to wait with that one, and we're going to do that one. Now, I'm not going to be crazy and try to run all of these through without securing them, so we're going to be using a little bit of post-it tape and hold the dice down. Now, if you have a magnetic platform, it is easier because then you don't have to actually worry about the dice moving, but I don't. So we are going to secure these, and then we're going to run this through our die cutting machine. So you can see here I'm using 2 pieces effectively on, not all of them, but to hold one in place, but it also overlaps so that we're holding the second one in place as well. And if you need to use things like post-it tape or washi tape or something like that, then it means that you just don't have to use quite so much, and it's not going to be so much waste. Now you can obviously reuse these a fair few times, but depending on how they stick to your dice after you run them through your machine, sometimes it just makes a bit of a mess, doesn't it? Let's be honest. Okay, so now we're ready. We're going to get our die cutting machine. We are going to place this here and we're going to run it through. She says, like, you have never seen die cutting in action. But you know, it's all for entertainment purposes. So there we go. These look good enough to eat, don't they? Oh, and it seems that I placed the plate a little bit too high up, so these ones didn't actually cut out at the bottom. So we're gonna go back and forth. Here we go. It's almost like it's my first day die cutting. Okay. Now we're going to take some of our backgrounds here and we are going to start puzzling a little bit. So, oh, I thought this is going to be the gold, but it might be the black. Oh, that pops, doesn't it? So good. Okay, and on this one, oh, I wonder if it's going to be black on both of these. But then maybe it will be gold on black. Or is it going to be gold on gold for our third card? Oh, that is almost too shimmery, isn't it? I mean, yes, I'm all about celebrating, but that might be a little bit too shimmery. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to start with these two first. So we are going to take our liquid glue again, and we're going to add some to the back of these, and then we're going to let them dry before we move on. So obviously when you're using liquid glue on these kind of fine detailed die cuts, having something like a billiards glue or something with a fine tip like this is going to make your life a lot easier. So definitely look into getting something like that. And again, we're not going to want to add too much here. We're going to kind of want to try to get away with as little as possible while still keeping everything glued down and where it's supposed to go. So a light touch, and we are nearly there. Remember, this doesn't have to be perfect. And also if it does squeeze out a little bit around the edges, if you have a glue that dries clear, it doesn't really matter. It really doesn't. No. And then we're going to line up with a corner here, and we're going to see if we can get it exactly right with the corner. And then we're going to follow the line down here, and then we're just going to let it go. And it's going to fall into place like that. And then gently dab, touch. And you can see that there is a little bit of glue. We're going to zoom in here. You can see that there is a little bit of glue that kind of squeezed out a bit. But the only place we're going to worry about it is where it's stuck to our work mat, so it doesn't actually glue to the table. And then we're going to use our nails actually instead of our fingertips, and just tap, a little bit like that. And then we're going to put this aside to dry. But look at that. That looks pretty cool, right? So, I mean, this might just... or... and then some bling. I think that's going to be it. Yes. Okay, but we're going to do the second one here as well. And we're going to do the same thing. So, oops. A little bit of glue. And we're going to try to go even lighter, because even though it was pretty light the first time, or on the first one, it still made a little bit of a mess. So even less. Here we go. And again, you don't actually have to add glue to every single line, but you do have to add it to obviously like the key lines, and then the things like the strings that are sort of popping out, because otherwise that one will be flopping around and it could actually end up getting caught and squished, and it will ruin even the look of your card. So just be smart about where you're placing your glue. And I mean, you can obviously go in and add a little bit more later if you realize that, oops, I missed that a little bit. But it can be a little bit fiddly, so we're going to try to do it to the best of our ability first time around. And now I'm going to take this. Again, we're going to zoom in a little bit actually. So we're going to line it up at a corner. Oops, like that. And then we're going to follow the line down the card. And we're going to have to trim off the excess there at the bottom. And then we're going to let this just drop. Like that. Okay, and then tap, tap, tap. Okay. There we go. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, now the question is, do we add like a gold balloon? No, we're not. No, we're not, but it was worth checking. So on this one, I'm fairly sure we are going to be using a fair few of these gorgeous cupcakes, but I'm wondering now, we do like the colors. No, we're going to do maybe the two. Like that, and we're going to place them slightly at an angle, and the Celebrate is going to go at the top here like that. And you know what, we are going to just glue this down now, because we are just going to stop overthinking things and we are going to actually do it. But I will be adding these two with a little bit of foam tape just to pop them up a little bit. I'm going to be using some Alter New Instant Dimension foam tape, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the backing of some double-sided tape. I'm going to pull out my foam tape. We're going to pop this onto the backing paper, and the reason for this is so that it will be easier to cut this without getting the sticky stuff on your scissors, because nobody likes sticky scissors. It's a bit of a pain in the butt to clean up. So now we are going to measure our foam tape and cut, and see how easy that was. No problems. And a bit shorter. So we're going to place all on the back here, so that they are nice and stable and they're not going to flop in the middle. And the same on this one. Okay, so now we're just gonna go for it. Just gonna add these, and our first card is almost done. We are going to add a little bit of bling. Don't worry, you don't come to a class with Eric and there's no bling, of course. Okay, now to Celebrate, I think we're just gonna add as it is, with obviously liquid glue. So the reason we're doing this and not adding foam tape on this one as well is so that we'll have different dimensions and heights on the card, just to add that little fun extra bit of interest. But we are going to try to get it on straight though. So using our grid, we're going to make sure that it is on pretty straight like that. And then we're going to zoom in again. We're going to use our Bling here, and we're going to add, I'm going to say a fair amount, because, you know, it's me. But we're going to put these into a little tray, and we're going to use our Bling Buddy, not that end, this end, to add some of these gorgeous golden illusion blings. These are one of my favorites, and I'm so glad I got to chance to stock up on these when I was in the States recently, because I go through these like candy. I really do. But can you blame me? Look how pretty they are. Ooh. And one of the things I am such a fan of with the Meraki Bling is that there are so many different sizes, because I like mixing them up, and I like having all of those different sizes so that it's just more fun, I think, anyway. So, oops, quite a big blob of glue there. So, ooh, we are going to work it. We are going to make it work. There we go. Okay, so I do also like mixing all of these different sizes, kind of making like little clusters everywhere. So having all of these different sizes, it just makes it so much easier to add that like fun interest. And I cannot like overstate how much of a fan of this I am. In case you don't know, in case this is your first time with me. Hi, my name is Erica. I am a chronic overblinger. I absolutely love bling, and I use, I would say, almost an unhealthy amount of bling, but I think it's fun. I love it, and yeah, bling is my thing. Oh, that rhymed. I didn't even catch that until just now. Ha! Fun. Okie dokie. Now, if you thought that we were done adding bling, no, we're not. We're gonna keep adding until we're happy. And my happy is definitely slightly higher than most people's. Now, if you are not comfortable with this level of bling, that is fine, obviously. You do you. It's personal preference. You know, everybody likes different things. Some people just like 3 or 4. I'm like, yeah, 3 dozen. 3 dozen will do it quite nicely for me, thank you. So, you know, if you do need help, or if you want to embrace your blingy side, but you want a little bit of more support, I am here for you. We are gonna make it happen, don't you worry. We are gonna turn you into bling queen as well, if that is something you desire. So come to the sparkly side. Okay, now I kind of know what size I want, but I can't really find this. So we're going to go big one, a slightly bigger one. There we go. Okay, now I actually think we're done. Oh no. Almost gotcha, didn't I? There we go. Now we might be done. Yes, now we're done. Okay, so here we have it. First card done, except for the trimming, but we're going to do that in a little bit. We are going to move on, or move back to our second card here. Now this one I will trim before I do anything else, because this one is just a panel, so it's not actually on a card base yet. So we're going to trim. And then this happy birthday, I think we're going to prop up. But what we're going to do with this is we're actually going to cut out a few more of the shadow dies, and we're going to layer them up that way. So I have 3 already die cut pieces here of the shadows, and I've done these in white cardstock rather than gold, because it seems a bit crazy to waste the gold cardstock when they're just going to be the basis basically. So I'm going to place these in order, or it doesn't matter which order really, and then we're going to pop a little bit of glue on each one of these. Just swirl it around like so, and then we're going to leave that one, and then we're going to move on to the next one. A little bit all over the place. And the third one. And the reason we're doing this is, again, just to give that glue a little bit of a, not a second, but a little bit of a chance to cure just a tad, so that it won't be such a sticky mess when we layer these up. Now, if you want to make this, you know, pop up, but not quite so much, I mean, 1 will actually do quite nicely. 2 is great. And 3 are fabulous. But again, if you're mailing a card like this, you don't have to pop up any of these, because it will actually make it easier to mail it. The flatter the card is, the easier it will be to mail. So that is also something to bear in mind. Are you giving your card in person, or are you going to have to send it? So if you have to send it, flatter is better, definitely. So again, with our birthday one, swirl, 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 leave it, swirl, swirl, swirl. The middle is actually not as important as the edges. So I don't know why I'm spending so much time on that, but there we go. A little bit more there, and maybe a little bit more there and there. So get all of the bits that are actually gonna be sticking together. So the outside bits, so you don't get those gaps, basically, and on your word die. Oops. Okay. And then this one. 1. 2. And also here, something that you can do as well is have these on different heights. Just again, for like another little fun kind of dimension. But I'm gonna go big. We are gonna have all of the height, and we are going to put these smack in the middle. And then we're gonna glue these down right away. We are not gonna overthink things. We are just going to do it. And again, we're gonna use our grid to make sure that we get these on relatively straight. Okay, yep, we are good. And then the birthday. Okay, and hold in place for a little bit. There we go. And then we're gonna go straight into the bling. So get our bling buddy out again. Again, not that end. We're gonna go that end. And here, I have a little bit of an idea sort of like of the placement. So we're gonna kind of have a cascade of the bling around the happy birthday to kind of really draw the focus into it. I do need some of the slightly bigger ones, so we're gonna also utilize our little lid and see what we can find. Okay, right, so here we go. We're gonna go big ones first, and then, or bigger rather. And here, I was a little bit willy-nilly with the glue there, I'm not gonna lie. That was a bit too much. And we are gonna go maybe down here as well. There, and up here. It is coming out a little bit fast here. Okay, now we're gonna find our smaller ones. Not that one. Okay, I'm finding some of the little bitty ones. So we're gonna go with the ones that we can find. And you might be able to hear church bells. It does mean that it is 12 o'clock. So there's going to be some ringing and singing as well. There's a little one. Okay. And some more little ones. Okay. Oh, here they go. Church bells in full force. Adding bling and listening to church bells. Quite an idyllic day. And card making with a bunch of friends. Honestly, it's like a really, really, really good day. Hi. I'm so glad you guys are here with us. Hopefully this will not be the last time we do one of these retreats, because it's been great fun so far. And it's always, always fun to craft with friends, even when they're spread far and wide across the globe. It's just something about sharing this hobby with somebody who really gets it, who doesn't think it's crazy that you have all of these stamp sets and die cuts and all of this pretty paper that is, you know, too pretty to use, and, you know, all the bling and all of this. Yeah. But that is our second card done. Look at that. Sparkly and happy. Okay, so we have 2 finished cards here, and we're just gonna have a little look-see on these, and then I will show you the card that I made with the gold balloon frame. And 1 turned to 2, so we have a total of 4 cards. Yes. Anyway, you know, there you go, value for money. So these are the 2 that we have made in the video. Obviously, you've been following along. And here is the first one that I finished with the gold balloon frame. So I did the same ink blending and gold splattering, and then I used the other cupcakes that I haven't that I didn't use for the first one. I also cut out a birthday wishes from the EAPs and layered those up, of course. These are also layered up with foam tape, so it's you know, it has some dimension to it. And sparkle, of course, finished off again with more golden illusion sparkles. And our last card is very shiny and glittery. So I actually took the matte balloons from the that came out of this one, and I took the gold frame. I have cut out another one, so we have a lot of time. And then I have actually laid this onto shiny black cardstock for some very delicious contrast. So, and then the Celebrate is done with the same shiny black cardstock here and the matte gold. And that one is also layered up, I want to say 2 times. So, and again, lots of sparkle. Now, I am toying with the idea of adding some kind of like highlights on the balloons with a Posca pen. But actually, you know what? We are going to try that. We are going to try that. But I will probably take a picture of this first, and then we can compare. Okay, so this is the Posca pen we are going to use. It is the 0.7 millimeters. So I'm hoping I'm not going to regret this, but you never know. So if you don't like how this ends up, skip this step. Yes. If you end up making this like bonus card, that is. So we're going to, oh, okay, my hand is all shaky now. Oh no. Okay, right. So make sure that you're not overly caffeinated when you're doing this. And maybe also not having had like a sugary snack right before. But yeah, we're just gonna try to make these relatively even. Obviously the bigger balloons will probably have slightly bigger highlight. Whew, but it's just gonna be whatever it ends up being right now, I feel like. So we are gonna, you know, we're just gonna do it, and then we will step back and have a look at how it looks like later. So again, if, oops, sorry, something fell over. So if you don't like how this ends up, or if you feel like you're a little bit shaky in your hand like I am, oh my goodness, that one is terrible, you might want to like skip this, or get one of your steady-handed friends to help you out. Maybe, oh, I don't know, are we doing one on that one? Maybe a little bit, like right at the top. Okay, that might have been a really bad idea, but this is what we got now. So yeah, okay, we're gonna step away now while it is just a little bit terrible and not super terrible, because there's a couple of bits here that really could do with some cleaning up, but I don't trust my hands right now. So we are no, you know what? We're gonna keep it real. We're gonna keep it real. Okay. Whew. Right. Oh, yeah. Okay, so it's definitely not the time to kind of start getting all like flicky. Don't do that. So as per usual with a lot of my videos, it is do as I say, don't do as I do. Yeah. Okay, all right. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Okay. Okay, all right. We are gonna, now we're gonna step away. Okay, I'm not even gonna touch this now because I will probably smudge. But that is it from me for today. So we have our 2 actual class cards and 2 bonus cards. So I really hope that you have enjoyed this and enjoying the rest of the retreat. And now I'm gonna go lie down. But I will definitely see you in the chat for the rest of the retreat. But yeah. Whew, okay. That is it. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've had some fun. And yeah. Let's leave it at that.
Hey Crafty Cats, it's me, Laura Evangeline. I'm delighted to join you for another crafty class. Since we're near the end of our workshop schedule, I anticipated you may have used up several of your kit supplies. So the theme for this class is kitchen sink cupcakes. If you aren't familiar, kitchen sink baking recipes involve taking all the elements and yummy bits you have on hand, leftovers, you throw them in the mix, and you create a yummy treat. Which is exactly what we're going to do to create a delicious set of cards like this one. I'm going to start first with my cupcakes. Now you should have plenty of these left over because that paper pad was chock full. And then I want to do a background here. So I'm pulling out some leftover watercolor backgrounds I have. Since this is a kitchen sink recipe, I'm really trying to use leftovers I already have. And I want to pick some colors that match. Now, not everybody's gonna have this. So on the supply list, I put down a piece of watercolor cardstock that's trimmed to an A2. That's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'd like to make 2 cards out of this one piece of cardstock. So I'm gonna further trim this down in half, 2 equal halves. So on the long end, that's 5 1/2, I'm gonna trim it down at 2 3/4. Now I should have 2 equal pieces, which are on the short side 2 3/4 inches, and on the long side 4 1/4 inches. The reason I created 2 panels here is 1, to use up the entire panel, 2, to create multiple cards at once, and 3, I want to show you 2 different techniques for creating this colored background. One is going to be a wet and more messy technique, while the other is going to be dry and a little bit more clean. So you can either create one of each along with me, or if you have an aversion to the messy, stick with the dry technique. Or if you like wet, wild mixed media, go with the wet one. It's all up to you in this kitchen sink recipe card. I may change my mind a little bit as we progress, but right now I've just picked out a couple cupcakes that I like the colors of, which will help guide me in what color background to create. I have a few more here I've picked out. I'm not sure exactly which one to use just yet. I'm also pulling out a bit of glitter cardstock. Now I know this was a hot commodity, so you may be running low on this. So I'm going to offer you some alternatives here. The first one is the Effortless Shimmer Paper Pad. It's a foilable paper pack. So this cardstock was white with black toner ink on top. I foiled it and ink blended. Another alternative would be to just use some of that solid cardstock that you have. I don't see a whole lot of people using this much these days, and I know that we all bought some. So go through it and see if you have anything that you like. And you know what, you could even just ink blend a background if you want as well. So at this point we are ready to get started. I'm going to move forward thinking I will be using that glitter cardstock. So first I need to work on these 2 background panels. And as promised, I plan to do one with a clean, dry technique and the other with a more wet and messy technique. So I've pulled out some inks here. These are Distress Oxides, and the colors I've chosen all work relatively well with any of the color cupcakes that were in that paper pad. Referencing my sample here with the salvaged patina background, you can see the direction I'm going in. I chose a color that would complement the overall design here. So that blue is not in that cupcake design, but it looks good with the pink, doesn't it? All right, so this first one, I think I'm gonna go with mustard seed. There's nothing too highfalutin or fancy about this version of the technique. This is the version if you like to stay dry and less messy. I'm just ink blending directly onto the watercolor cardstock. The only thing I'm paying attention to is not getting too close to the edges. I didn't tape it off because I don't want harsh lines. I want a soft, blown out look. I love this version of creating a background because it's quick, it's already dry, you can stop right here, there's no mess to clean up. Can you see how everything looks? It kind of looks like a glow when you let it blow out over the edges like that. However, sometimes I feel like I want to get a little bit messy or have a different look. So let me show you what I do in that instance. So here on the other piece of watercolor cardstock, I'm going to take another ink pad. This is Picked Raspberry. I'm going to press it directly here onto my glass mat. And to get that ink moving and activated, I'm going to spritz it down with a little bit of water. Now, typically, if you've seen this technique before, you will see people take the cardstock background and they'll press it directly down into the ink. And you can go over and over and press, and you're going to get something that is very pretty. However, because I can't see where the ink is going, I got too close to the edge with the ink. I want a little bit more controlled chaos. So I've got a piece of acetate here. I'm going to rock it back and forth into the ink and then put it onto my cardstock. Now I have a somewhat controlled, yet still loose, airy, whimsical look. It would be super fun here to go ahead and add another color like purple or that yellow again. The colors could mix together and create something really pretty. I would just be mindful if the color was on the opposite side of the rainbow so I don't create something muddy. Or maybe you'll have to wait till the panel dries. That's the negative thing about these mixed media, more wet, messy techniques, is the patience needed or the extra steps needed to get the panel dry so you can move forward and keep working. My crafting personality is a little bit tormented with this because I really prefer this wet mixed media look, but also I'm the kind of crafter who doesn't want to wait for things to dry or have extra steps. So then I lean towards the dry. So ultimately, I never know which one to choose and I end up doing both like this. Having to clean up between each step of my project is another thing that maybe I'm not always a fan of, but it is necessary. And you know what? I am curious now. Are you the type of crafter who likes to stay neat and tidy? Do you like dry projects? Or do you like to get your hands in there, get messy? You don't mind waiting for things to dry or doing the extra steps? Anywho, let me get back to the project. Here in the sample, you can see the background. I have kind of a confetti look. I've set the wet one aside in my little drying tray, and I have the dry version here. That's the yellow one. And I know I'm going to add a little bit of water here, but it's not going to be messy. So I've got it here in my splat tray, and I'm going to spritz just a little bit of water. And then by using a paper towel to blot up the excess, I'm going to keep everything tidy, and it's going to be immediately dry. The little spritz gave me not quite as much as I'd like, so I'm going to go ahead and then tap on some bigger splotches of water, and you could even put some in your hand and kind of flick it across, blot it up with a paper towel, and let me hold it up here so you can see a little bit better how the water pulled away some of that ink because that distress oxide reacts with water. And there you go, I blotted it with a paper towel and it's dry and ready to move on. Now my wet version isn't quite dry, so I'll set that one aside and I'll stick here with the dry version. I'd like to add a splattered confetti background, but in keeping with our technique of keeping this one dry and not messy, I'm going to add that splattered background with some markers. You could use pens or any other kind of medium that you have. And let's see here, I've got complementary colors to my cupcake. This one here is B04, it's a light aqua, and I'm just going to kind of dot randomly. I am a bit heavy-handed. I like a more is more look, but feel free to do what you like. For the darker blue here, I have a B29. Just kind of dab and dot. Each of my little specks is random. Some are big, some are small. Just whatever the marker did is what I went with. Now for the red, I have R29. Again, I'm kind of speckling around the outside. I'm not going too far outside of the yellow ink blending that I did. All right, I don't think I need all those colors. I think, yes, let's see. Okay, here are the colors I ended up using. I know I pulled out a lot here. I did, let's see if you could see this here. The R29, B04, and B29. And of course I need to pull out one more, maybe one more. This is a yellow that's slightly deeper than the ink blended shade I have in the back. And this is, let me see here, Y17. So I have a turquoise, a dark blue, a red, and a yellow that's a little bit darker than my ink blended background. Okay, there we have it. We have splatter that looks kind of like ink splatter, but we didn't make a mess. We don't need to wait for any drying. I think this is looking pretty cute. So let's set this aside and take a visit back to our wet, messy version. Mine is pretty well dry. If yours isn't, you could blast it with a heat gun, air gun, or blot it with a paper towel. And I am ready to add some ink splatter. I love this gold. It's actually a calligraphy ink, and I've put it into a nail polish bottle with a long handle so it's easier for me to grab. And I'm just going to kind of tap and splatter all over until I get the amount that I like. There we go. I think I like how that's looking. I'm trying to restrain myself just a little bit. I know I like to go over the top with my embellishments and splatter. Okay, I think I would like a little bit of white on here. This is kind of a pearlescent white. Again, it's a calligraphy ink, but you could use watercolors, sprays, micas mixed with water. There's all sorts of beautiful mediums that you can use, and you can use them straight from the bottle they come in, pour them out, get a little paintbrush and splatter, or do like I do and put them in a nail polish bottle like this. Okay, there we go. I really like how this is turning out. It is starting to look like a party. We just need to set that aside to dry. And I made a little mess on my desk here, of course, so let me take a minute to clean that up right quick before we move on to selecting the matte layer. Now I am still hopeful I have enough glitter cardstock to create a matte layer here. And let's see, I'm trying to see how I can best utilize this, maximize my space, and then also pick something that is going to have good complementary colors to my background. This blue is really pretty. I even like that it kind of goes up into the purple. Let's see here, but I don't really have purple in my cupcake. So, let me see. If I turn it this way, I think I can get this turquoise kind of blue. Let me take a ruler here. I would like about 1/8 of an inch border around, so I need to double that. So 1/4 inch, so I'm going to cut this 1/4 inch larger on each side than my white watercolor panel. And so my white watercolor panel was 4 1/4 inches long, and the short side is 2 3/4. So let me give myself a matte layer of 3 inches wide, and then let's turn it here. And for the length, I want it to be 4 1/2. So let me see, let me double check here. I will have all these measurements written down if you're rewatching this. So let's make sure I'm measuring this correctly here. Yep, 4 1/2 inches on the long side, 3 inches on the short side. So let me see here. Yep, see how that gives me a nice about 1/8 inch border around. Everything is looking good. Okay, I think we are ready to get a card base going here. And you see here I have the 1/8 inch of the glitter paper, and then I think I want my next matte layer to be a full 1/4 inch. I like that wide white border around there. So let's measure here. I've got 4 1/2, and then I need to double that for a card, so I'm gonna get 9. And then I want a 1/4 inch on each side, so that's 1/2 inch. I'm gonna have to double that to a full inch, which is gonna give me 10 inches. Have y'all seen those memes where they talk about doing girl math? Well, here we go with Cardmaker math. This is not my favorite part of the hobby, but let's see, I want a 1/4 inch on each side. So 10 inches for a top folding. I'm gonna need 10 inches long piece of cardstock, 1/4 inch on each side here. So if I'm at 3, it's gonna be 3 1/2 inches wide by 5 inches tall, my card base. And you know what? That happens to be the same size as an invitation or 4-bar card, which is one of my favorite size cards to make, next to A2, of course, and Mini Slimline. Those are my favorites. I love this size because 4-bar cards and envelopes are not that difficult to find. And as you can see, A2 products cut in half work wonderfully as a matte layer here. And in fact, you can take your A2 products and double your cards just by using 4-bar card bases. So this glitter cardstock, it's gonna get covered up. So I don't want to waste it. I want to dig through my dies. I've pulled out several tag and rectangle sizes here, and I'm going to find something that will hide behind this little layer here. That little tag would work. This tag's going to work, I think. Yes, it's the perfect size. So I'm going to die cut this glitter cardstock here right in the center, and my matte layer is going to cover this up. You will never know that I have gutted this piece of glitter cardstock to maximize its usage. And you know what? I will do a bonus project at the end, or if I run out of time, I will post it later, of what I do with this tag. Now here you can see on my plates, I wrote "do not cut." on my top plate to ensure that I keep one plate smooth, just if you're wondering why I wrote myself that little love note. And let's go ahead and die cut that out and see how we came out here. Let's see, pull this off, and oh, let me get my little tape off there. It's cut out just like butter. Get that little tag diddle out of there. I don't know what you call that. I call it a diddle. I know the dot on the top of the eye is a tittle, so the dot in the tag I call a diddle. I don't know, I'm just making up stuff now. Okay, so like I said, set that tag aside. We will use it later. And let's see. Voila, we have a matte layer, and we didn't waste any of that glitter cardstock underneath. I'm loving it. Let's set the dry version of our card aside and re-change our focus back over to our wet version. Let's see, our wet and messy. The pink, my panel is looking pretty dry. I just need to figure out which matte layer I want with this one. I love that coral, and ooh, I love this one. And maybe, oh, you know what? I think I found a winner. I love this one to go with this color set. So once again, I need to trim this down so I get about 1/8 of an inch border. So I need to pull out my trimmer here again, and let's see. I'm nervous to cut this wrong because I don't want to waste any glitter cardstock. I'm going to check once again. Okay, my long side I am trimming to 4.5 inches, and for my width, the short side, I'm trimming it to 3 inches wide. So that should leave me with a good border. And yes, once again, I'm gonna use that die again to gut the glitter cardstock, and I'm gonna save that tag. We're gonna do something with it later. Let me make sure I have it centered because this tag is pretty on the nose with the size of my matte layer. All right, once I have it centered, I can go ahead and run this through my die cutting machine. Okay, while I'm getting this through the die cutting machine, I have another question. Do you craft along live, or do you like to just watch and then craft later? Are you more here for the social aspect? Do you feel like it's hard to keep up when you're crafting live and you really like to keep up with the chat? Or are you watching the replay? And then same thing, like, do you take notes? Do you go back and watch the video? Do you hit pause? What's your jam? What's your style with these? I feel like I'm all over the place. I don't really know what I'm supposed to do, but I feel like I can't miss the chat. Like, the live chat for me is where it's always at. Okay, anyway, let me get back to my card here. I've got, I think, all my pieces about ready to start assembling. Now, I could not find where I put my 4-bar card bases. So this one is a little big. You are right if you've got that. That's an A2 size card base. And that's okay. I will just trim it down. But first, I need to get a little bit of liquid glue around my frame here. This is the matte layer. And I like using liquid glue so that I can have a little bit of slip and wiggle. Let's see, make sure I use the fold of the card as my landmark. So when I am trimming away excess, I'm not going to trim where the card folds. I have made that mistake many times. And speaking of mistakes, I realize I did not leave my 1/4 inch white border around the edge. I left more of 1/8 of an inch. That's all right. When I trim away the excess, this card, as long as it's still a little smaller and not bigger, it will still fit in my 4-bar envelope. That's fine. It's not card making if I didn't make a mistake. In fact, it's not a mistake, right? It's a design choice. I'm the designer and I can do it however I like, right? Okay, so for the other one, I will remember to leave my 1/4 inch border. Let's see, let me wiggle and fidget and adjust this. And so everything is nice and centered, and burnish it so I don't have any lumps or bumps here. And let's see. I think I have it all even and ready to go before that glue sets and dries. Okay, back to this other one though. I still need to get it all trimmed up. So grab that trimmer here, and I need to, don't trim on the fold of the card. We don't want a postcard, right? I mean, I guess it would still work. You wouldn't believe how many times I have done that. Okay, let's see. I want about 1/8 of an inch, so trim away the excess. And my card is just going to end up being a little bit smaller than a 4-bar, just by, what, 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 inch? No big whoop, ain't nothing but a thing. It's still cute, it still works, it still fits. Now, I would like a little band of twine here. So this is just some plain old white baker's twine, cotton twine, crochet thread. That also works excellent. I have a lot of that. That comes in a lot of fun colors. And just gonna wrap it around and tie a little bow. So I have not attached this to anything yet. It's just loosely kind of wrapped around because I want to be able to shimmy my bow left and right depending on where the cupcake lands. So let me fiddle with my bow a little bit here. And you know what? I know not everybody is a bow tire. So I'm going to show you another way to get the same look here in just a second. But let me scooch my bow over. I want it to be kind of far over to the right. Let me make sure my cupcake is going to fit. I want the cupcake to still be in the center of my card. So I need to move it over just a little bit more. And I think that, yep, that'll do it. That'll do it. I like where the bow is falling there. Now I want to pop this cupcake up, and I don't want the foam strips to be on top of the twine because it'll create a lump. So flip my cupcake over. I'm going to draw a couple of little landmarks here. I'll hold it up so maybe you can see. I drew a little channel where I think my twine is going to fall. So now when I put down all of my foam strips, I'm going to avoid that little penciled off area, which is giving me a channel for my twine to fall in, and I won't have any lumps under my cupcake. No lumpy cupcakes. Gosh, if I keep saying cupcakes, I am going to start drooling on my card. I'm thinking about what kind of cupcakes or cake or dessert I am going to head to the grocery store after all this and go try to find. I'm not sure. You know, it's been a long time since I've made anything from scratch. Do you have a favorite cupcake place, cake, or recipe? Like, what's your favorite? What do you like? What should I try? And dare I ask, are there people who don't like cake or cupcakes? Or maybe you just can't have it? And if that's the case, what do you go for? My curiosity is piqued. Okay, I gotta focus, bring it in, Laura. I have my cupcake here, and I need to wiggle it so it's in the center. Let me hold it up so you can see that channel where the twine goes through. So I can still wiggle it if I need to, and once it's where I like it, I'll add a little dot of glue right behind the knot. This will keep it in place and keep it from untying. You can even add a little bit of glue over the knot to further lock it in place. I gave the ends a little haircut, and I will zhuzh it just a little bit there. And let's see, I have a space under the cupcake for a sentiment, so I'm going to start thinking about what I want to do as far as a sentiment goes. I also still need to add foam to the back of this layer. You could glue it down flat, but I like the extra dimension. So let me go ahead and add a little bit of foam around the border here. And just like before, I'm not putting any foam adhesive over the twine to avoid any lumps. I'll leave that channel open. When I'm adding foam adhesive around a big rectangular or square panel like this, I like to go all the way around the border to give kind of a clean, polished look. And then I will go in and take a few little pieces to create kind of cross supports like this. If I put this in the mail or even over time as people handle it, I don't want it to crush. And then just for added measure, I can put a little bit of liquid adhesive over the twine here, and then take one of those pieces of tape that I used and just kind of stick it over there, kind of like a patch or a band-aid. And now I am ready to go ahead and put some more liquid glue over all of this foam adhesive. Oh, I forgot to take one of the backings off there. And go ahead, add all this liquid glue, because again, it's going to give me a little bit of slip to just place this. Make sure my card's not upside down. You know how I am. Put that right there in the center and slip and slide it until I think it's right there in the middle, and give it a good press down. Let's see, I think, yep, it is looking cute, and I didn't put it on upside down. Yay, go me! Okay, now a sentiment. Let's see, which one do I like? And you know what? I still have a whole bunch cut out from the other classes, So let me rifle through here and find something that I like. All of these sentiments are going to work, of course. I have birthday and wishes. I really like this one because there was a die to cut it out. Everything else I cut out in strips. And oh, I also like that. Thank you. You know what? I think, let me look here. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and go with birthday wishes. I like this one. You could pop it up so it's even with the cupcake, but that's a very fine detail there. You could also cut out a few blank cardstock pieces. That way it's perfectly matching and stack up a few different layers of the birthday. But I'm gonna go ahead and just adhere this directly to my card front. And because I use liquid glue, I have a little bit of wiggle time to adjust it. And I'm gonna use my tweezers here because it's such a delicate little piece, and make sure I get that centered. Okay, I've just about got it. Let me put a little bit of pressure on it so it will dry in place. And there we have it. This is way too cute. I'm loving this card. Okay, but let's go on to our other card. Let me check on that panel that I splattered. And let's see, everything's gonna look good. This cupcake's gonna be cute. The daisies will be cute. Ooh, rainbow. Other rainbow. I really like the star on this one, so I think I'm gonna go with this one. A couple of my ink splatters are still not quite fully dry, so I'm gonna press this paper towel directly on top and lift straight up. I'm not gonna blot it around so I don't smear the color. And now it is dry enough for me to work with. The twine is up next. So this is the method I was talking about where you don't have to be so skilled in tying a tight bow around your card. I'm creating a belt, just loosely measuring it here, ensuring I have enough tail around the back to secure with some tape or adhesive. And then I'm going to tie a little bow right off the end of my spool. This way I am minimizing the amount of waste when I go to trim my tails. And there you go, I just have to trim the one tail, and it really was only a tiny little bit that I cut off. And so now I have a belt and a bow that I can attach separately to my card, and it will look just like the other one. So now let's add that foam adhesive to the back of our cupcake. Just as before, I'm adding a little strip to the bottom, leaving a space for the channel for the twine to fall under because I don't want a lumpy cupcake. And ensure I get this foam adhesive all over the rest of the back of the cupcake towards the top. I want to make sure nothing will be able to fall flat. And let me trim that real quick. And another little piece. I love these pre-cut strips. It makes it easy to customize the width that I need. And let's see, before I attach the cupcake, I do need to make sure this belt is secured. So let me kind of eyeball where I want it to fall, and we'll secure the back here. And again, my twine is falling right across the very center of my card base here. We're going to stretch it across the front, and I will secure it in the back with a little piece of tape. And let's make sure I've got it centered. And then, you know what, for good measure, I'm going to go ahead and add another little piece on the front. This way it won't go up and down. Peel that backing off, and now I can peel the backing off of my cupcake, add a little bit of liquid glue, and go ahead and place this right in the upper half and center of this panel. Let's see, let me make sure it's centered and the twine is falling in that channel. There we go. Press it down, make sure it adheres really well. And it is looking cute. I have to find a new word. I keep saying cute because it is cute. It's just cute. What else could it be? Yummy. It looks yummy. Okay, I've got one of the sentiments here, and it's a little bit long to fit across the front, so I'm going to trim it in half. And I want the ends to be a little bit more fun, I guess. So I'm trimming them kind of at an angle, And let's see, I've lined them up over each other so I can get the same angle on each piece. Thank you, sweet friend. Okay, I like that. I just need to add a little bit of foam on the back so that they're popped up. You could glue them flat down too. That is just fine. It's gonna look great. Let me add another little piece here. 2 strips does it about perfectly for the width I cut these. I need another little piece on this one. And there we go. I just need to peel off the back. And sticking to my finger there. Peel off the back of this one. Add a little liquid glue. This one goes up towards the top, so I need to do this one first. And I need my tweezers for this one. This is a little tiny for my fingers to handle. I'll make sure it's in the center. Zhuzh it just a skint and press down when it's where I like it. All right, a little bit of liquid glue on the back of this other one. Let's use my tweezers, will help me here. And I gotta hold it up so I can see to make sure it is centered underneath. And I think right about there. And now, let me see. And yep, right there. So now I can press it down and let it dry, and that will lock it in place. All right, it's looking good, like it. Okay, so for the back, same dealio. I have some foam here, and this foam's on a roll because I'm trying to get through it. I am almost here to the end. I don't know if I'm gonna make it all the way around on this card. And I don't like to switch the foam types I'm using between layers because each foam, it could be a different width here. So let's see, crossing my fingers to make sure this goes on all the way around. And you know what? The theme of this card, remember, was to use what we have. This is a kitchen sink card. So I'm gonna do what I can to use this thing up and use what I have. Oh, yep, I called it. And you know what? I can't pull backing off of this. That is attached right to the foam strip. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna flip it on over and attach it from the back side. And I'm just gonna keep on using this. Let's see, I need to cut about that much off to fit here. And I'm gonna attach that piece. So that brown cardstock that you see there, brown cardboard, does not come off. It is straight onto the foam, and I don't wanna rip it up. So I'm just gonna put this here in the middle because, like I said, I need a bridge here in the middle of the card so it doesn't cave in. And let's put this piece here. It's a little long, so let me trim it. And I'll just throw that piece there in the middle. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna peel off these backing strips from the other ones. And you know what? Nobody's gonna see this back here, just you and me. It's our little secret. I'm just gonna use my liquid adhesive. We're gonna go on all the way around here, add our liquid glue. No one will be the wiser. Is that how the expression goes? None the wiser? No one will be the wiser? I don't know. Do you ever, sometimes I say expressions and I feel like Michael Scott from The Office and I'm saying it completely wrong and I have no idea. I don't know. I'm a silly goose. We could say these cupcake cards are done. However, I told you I like more is more, and I want to use some embellishments. And in keeping with the theme of using what we have, I want to show you this confetti I created here in the center of the dish. These were punched out from leftovers of the glitter cardstock from some of the other projects I made from some of the other classes. So I want to use some of these in the background. You could see I used some on my sample card. And then I also have this really pretty iridescent sequin mix from the kit. One thing I really love about this particular mix is all of the different shapes that you'll see in here. There are different shapes of hearts, stars, circles, diamonds. So I'm gonna go a little extra here, as the kids say, doing a little extra, and I'm picking out particular shapes. And they're quite small, so if you can't see, I'm picking out the round and the star shapes. Since I have a star in my cupcake, I thought that would be quite suitable and a good match. So I'm just going to pick out a few little things here with my tweezers. I know these are very tiny, so if it's not your jam, that's all right, because guess what? This is your card and you are the artist. You get to make all the choices and the decisions. So whatever makes your crafty heart happy is totally the right choice to make. Now let me tell you a little bit about why I'm placing these where I am. I like a random look, of course, but once again, organized chaos is the name of the game here. Typically, you may see me do, and a lot of other people, a group of 3, you know, rules of 3, the triad, visual triangle. But I have this long, skinny card. So instead of doing just 3, you see I've placed a little group of 3 embellishments in the top right, and then I go down over to the left side, and I'm going to put a group of 3 there. Back down over to the right, another group of 3 will go, and here I'm working on a little clump of 3, and then again down in the bottom right. So it's still an odd number. I have 5 little groupings of 3, and in each little grouping I'm doing a larger circle and 2 small stars. So on their own I have little visual triangles, but then overall I have more of a visual W or Z zigzag shape, and it still works. I'm not sure if there's a design rule about the zigzag or W shape, but I like it, and I still have an odd number. It still seems balanced, organized, yet chaotic, all at the same time. So I'm just going to go with it. Okay, I am bringing it on home here, finishing up these little trios with a larger circle. I know this is so tedious, but gosh, when it's done, it's going to look so pretty, and it's going to be so worth it, I think. When I'm done putting these sequins on here, I'll hold it up so you can see it a little bit closer. The camera never does things justice. Now, while I'm finishing up here, I am curious, yet again, what cupcake color did you pick, and what ink or whatever medium you decided to use for the background? What did you go with? I really wish I could see what you're working on. Okay, I am done. Let me hold it up here so you can see all the little circles and stars I added from the sequins. There's a little bit of gold splatter in the background. And then on our non-messy, non-fussy version where I splattered or dotted with marker. And then my sample where I did some confetti here, these little circles at the bottom I punched from the glitter cardstock left over. And then I have some ink splatter, and I also have little star sequins. So it's kind of a combination of the techniques that I just showed you. Okay, oh, I forgot to add my little bow. So let me do a little dab of glue here. And then I will press my little twine bow right into this. I could use my tweezers to just clamp it on. Let me make sure it's right in the center there and in the angle that I like before I let it set and dry. And then that glue will dry clear so I don't have to worry about it. And let me clean up here. Are you ready to move on to the next card? All right, so let's clean up. Push everything back to the side, and I will pull out my next set of materials here. Okay, so we've made these 3 cards. Well, we made 2, and my sample's there in the middle. And then here is the sample for the next card we're going to make. Now this time, I'm only going to show you 1 card, but you just learned 2 different versions, the wet and the dry, the clean and the messy, so you get to decide now how you want to proceed with this. Here I have a piece of watercolor cardstock, same size as we used before, so it's 2 3/4 by 4 1/4. I need to select a cupcake, so I have an idea about the color I'm going to go with here for my ink blended background. I thought I would just copy my sample, but then I thought that's no fun. I need to show more variety so you can see more colorways and options that would work. So let's see here. I am kind of liking, I want to pick something I haven't used yet to show variety. And I think I'm going to go with, let's see, I haven't done a green background yet. So look here on my card panel, and you can see from the sample, I did half of the panel, but cutting across on a diagonal. So I'm going to go corner to corner and ink blend all the way to cover half of this panel with my ink. I've just flipped it around here so that my fingers have a clean spot to hold the cardstock. But let me flip it around here. I'm ink blending the lower left half, and then letting that ink kind of fade out into the white area. So you do end up with ink on a little more than half, I guess, but generally speaking, that's where I want the ink to go. And we can make adjustments here. So once you've got that ink blended, pick your cupcake, and I want you to hold it over your ink blended panel. And then you can see here, do you have enough ink blended to where you like it? I have the little flag hanging over into the white area, so I'm going to add just a little more ink here because I don't really want any of my cupcake hanging over into the white area. So let's see, if I hold this up, I have ink, yep, all the way around where my cupcake will sit. So I'm satisfied with that. It's okay if your cupcake hangs into the white area. This is personal preference here. But now I think this position is going to be nice. I have a blown out color into white area, the white being in the top right, the color being in the lower left. At this point, I'm ready to start adding splatter, and I'm going to do it with my Copic markers. I have two complementary colors here, a lighter and a medium green. That was yellow green 09 and yellow green 06. And just as before, I will dot 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 all around where I like, just as if it was splatter. And like I said before, the benefit of using the markers is no mess, quick dry, and I have a little more control over the size and placement of the splatters. I do think it needs a little more color, a little something else. So I've got a red here. This is red 29, and maybe another deeper shade of green. So let me pull out this one here. That's green 17 and red 29 that I'm adding. So I have 3 shades of green. I do like multiple shades of the same color. I think it makes it less flat, more dimensional, more interesting. Okay, let's see. Let me dry fit my cupcake and see how I'm liking that. I think it's looking pretty good here. I might want a couple more little dots on the bottom left of the cupcake. I'm not sure if these will end up showing as I finish my card, but I'm going to add them here just in case. All right, I'm done with my markers, and I think it looks pretty good, but I am who I am, so I want to add some more. So let me grab my little splat panel, my little splat tray here. This is water again. I'm just gonna tap a few bits of water over my ink. Since it's Distress Oxide, this color will pick up if I blot it with a paper towel. So that's gonna give me kind of some white splatters. And then I think I'm gonna go in with my white ink. I'll add a little bit of white ink, splatter that on top. And I think I will probably also pull out my gold again. So I've mixed my dry and my wet splatter techniques that we learned from the earlier cards. So no pressure to do this as well. I'd like you to do what you want. At any point, I could have stopped and this panel would have looked beautiful and wonderful. I just one of those people who keeps on going. Now my panel, because I inked it splattered, needs to set aside to dry. And I'm ready to go on to the cardstock frame. If you did your homework, you should have a 3.5 by 5 inch cardstock panel. And you should also have a 4-bar folded card as well. So I did not have that, so I will make that here in a second. But I have that cardstock panel here because I'm going to use it to create that thick frame you see in my sample there on the upper left. I just need to go through my nesting A2 die collection here and find 2 sizes which I think will work nicely to create that frame. So I'm just kind of visually lining up things here to see what is going to give me the best window. So let me try these 2 here. That's not bad. I could make it a little fuller. If I use these 2, I think the frame is a little too skinny. So let me try this bigger size, and I think I like that one. And then I'm just going to tape that in place so it doesn't move in my die cutting machine. And then this kind of medium size one I think will make a nice frame. So let me make sure that's centered before I tape it in place, and I'll run it through my die cutting machine. And let me see here. let me read off my notes to tell you what sizes these are in case you're wondering. The larger rectangle of this one is 4 1/4 by 3 1/4, and this interior die measures 3 1/2 by 2 1/4. So if you have something around that size in your stash, it should work very well. All right, so you can see there, that's the piece I'm going to keep. Everything else is going to go off to the side. So here we go. Now, if you want this to be a shaker, you could place acetate here. This is where you put acetate. But I'm not going to do acetate. It's going to be an open window. So I'm going to go ahead and add my foam strips here to the outside. If you are adding sequins in here after the acetate, just make sure your foam strips are touching so you don't have any little gaps where your sequins can leak out. All right, let me get this foam adhesive put on here all the way around my frame. I am not skimpy with the foam adhesive. I don't want this to crush, like I said before. I want this to be nice and sturdy, no bowing or crushing. And once I have that all the way around, let me trim the end here. There we go. It looks nice and secure. Let me see how that's gonna look over my panel. It looks pretty good. And you know what, I do have a card base here. This is a 4-bar, let's see, card base. And I'm just sizing it up for reference. I have a little bit of border that's gonna hang around the edge, which I like, although my card is a little bit long for the A2 dies that I had here. So let me see. I'm gonna line up my card here. I should have probably done this before I put foam adhesive on it. Line it up and see about how much I need to trim so that I get a nice even border around the entire card. So the card base I'm starting with was that 4-bar I put in your homework. And let's see, which is 3 1/2 by 5 folded. And my dies that I had in my stash though gave me a frame for this size. So I am adjusting my card base slightly to accommodate for the size A2 dies that I had. Let me dry fit my panel to make sure it's gonna hide in there. And it does. So I have all the pieces ready to go. Everything's looking nice. I've got my little cupcake. I just need to add some dimensional foam to the back of it. And I'm placing it here so you can see that leaf and the bottom left of the cupcake are going to touch the frame. So I don't need to put foam adhesive right there. I will end up putting a little bit of liquid adhesive perhaps there so that it does grip to something behind it, but not foam. So let me keep on adding my foam here to the cupcake. And once I get all of this, I really like to have all my pieces done before I do my final assembly because I'm always going to change my mind or want to add something. I like to have all the elements ready to go, and then I'll assemble at the very end. Let me see if I can add a little bit of adhesive to this flag because I imagine that little dingle hopper there could get crushed or fall down. And let's see how that fits. Let me dry fit this and see if I've got my adhesive in the right spots. All right, it's looking good. I do think I need to go ahead and pick a sentiment out here. These are all the scraps I had left over. Let me just find something I think that will fit across. I like how in my sample I had that long strip where I've tucked it kind of under the frame and then it goes over the cupcake and then trails off with the tail. So I need to have a little gap here so I can tuck my sentiment down under and then come out here. This one says have a sweet birthday, which I like. And I think I will trim a little tail on the end for a fishtail. So I'm going to snip right up the middle, and then from corner to corner there, I will meet where I snipped that center line, and it should give me a pretty perfect fishtail. Let me just clean it up a little. And there we go. I like that. Have a sweet birthday. That's going to fit rather nicely. And I'm eyeballing again to see where it's going to hang over so I can add my foam adhesive to the part that needs support. Give that a little trim. And let me test it out. Make sure I didn't go too far in with my foam adhesive before I feel good about moving on to the next step. Just need to clean up a little bit so I don't lose anything. Now on my sample here, you see I have these colorful threads in the background. So I'm going to show you how I like to do these. Here is a little collection of threads that I have pulled out from my stash, which will kind of match some of the colors I'm working with. I really like this ombre yellow, which looks like that buttercream icing. I have a medium green and a light green. I'm also keeping in mind I have that lime green inked background. So let's see here. Let me pop the cap up so I can find the tail. And I'm going to wrap this 1, 2, 3 times around my hand. And then let me put the end back in the cap and press down before I cut it so I don't have loose thread ends everywhere in my thread bucket there. And then you can see here I have a nice little loop of thread. So what I'm going to do is flip this little cupcake over. I'm going to pull off 1 or 2 of the foam strip backing, so I have a little bit of adhesive but not the whole thing, so not everything is sticking. And then my thread kind of naturally turned into a figure 8 there, which is what I would do if it didn't. Anyway, let me rewind it here. So I've got it 1, 2, 3 times around my hand, and now I will twist it to a figure 8. And let me make sure I'm going to go the correct way. So I want to press that down onto that exposed adhesive backing there. And I have a little tail sticking out. I don't really want it sticking out, but you can. So I'm going to tuck that in and make sure it is sticking to the exposed adhesive. If you pull all the backing off at once, it does make it a little difficult to handle. The thread's just going to stick everywhere. So here, hold it up close so you can see. It's kind of coming together. I'll hold it over the paper. It's a little easier. I have that little thread loop kind of coming up on the top left and in the bottom right. So now I will go to the next color here, which is this ombre yellow. And once again, I'll wrap it around my hand 1, 2, 3 times. Then I can go ahead and trim it. I'm going to keep it together and twist into a figure 8 and place it right over or slightly next to the one I just placed and press it into that exposed adhesive. I'm going to make sure the loose end tails are stuck to something, and then there we go. Now I have a second color. I'll hold it up so you can see. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this last color. Now you could, I've seen a lot of people just take a little jumble of thread and just kind of stick it on the back. That is perfectly fine. It looks cute as well. But you already know I love organized chaos. I like an organized yet chaotic look, and this is how I achieve it. So let me get this light green thread here, pop it up, and 1, 2, 3 times wrapped around my hand, trim it, twist it into a figure 8, and then I'm going to place that back onto the exposed adhesive. Make sure my ends are tucked in and secured, and then there we go. Let me hold it up so you can see again that I have those 3 different colored loops on diagonal crossed ends there, and then here's what it looks like on the back side. Let me make sure I tuck this back in right under the cap and then press the cap down so that it secures that tail. All right, so now I have all my pieces. I have a frame, I have my sentiment, and then I have my cupcake with our thread nest behind it. And let's pull out the panel and see how it's doing. All right, all the pieces are here and ready to go. Mine is a little wet still, so I'm gonna press this paper dowel down directly on top and lift. I'm not gonna dab, dab, dab so I don't move the color around. And let's see here. I'm ready to go ahead and peel the backing off of my frame. And let's get those little boogers off of there. Then I'll get a little bit of my liquid adhesive, run it around the edge of my frame. This way I can slip and slide this frame into place if it doesn't line up exactly where I want it the first time. And once it looks good, I'll go ahead and press and secure that down. You can take a peek here at the back side and see that it's not perfectly lined up, but I did that intentionally so I would have some wiggle room to place that distressed area where I wanted it within the frame. a little liquid adhesive, and I'm ready to place this on my card base. Make sure I have the fold at the top so I'm not doing an upside down card. And let's see, that's pretty good. I will press it down, make sure it's all secure. And now our little cupcake is ready to go on next. Just gotta pull off all those little backing strips. Since I didn't add too much thread, there shouldn't be any lumpiness back here, but I'm gonna go ahead and add liquid adhesive all around. Again, that's gonna give me a little wiggle room. And let's see if I can line that up here, put it in place, and wiggle that right to where I want it. Keeping in mind, I need a little gap where I'm gonna tuck that sentiment strip in. All right, let me fluff up my little threads here. Maybe I'll use my tweezers to ensure they lay where I want them. Because once I put that sentiment strip on top, it's gonna lock those down. I'll dry fit it, make sure it's still gonna work out before that glue dries. And let's see, I need to scooch it over ever so slightly. And I think my foam is a little too long, so let me trim it. And let me see here, is that gonna work? So it's tucked under, and let's see, is it gonna lay flat? Yep, okay. Then I am ready to go ahead and take the strips off of here, the little backing strips. A little more liquid adhesive, make sure I get it on the whole thing here, because, and a little on the underside, because those are all the points where it's going to make contact. So right under the frame, over the cupcake, make sure my little threads are in the right spot before they get locked down. And then let's make sure my sentiment is straight and level. And let's see, press it all down. Okay, all right, there it is. We have our card. Do you think it's done? Let's see. On this one, let me show you close up. You could see I added some heart sequins and those punched confetti leftovers from the glitter cardstock. I also added some hearts here to the top of the cupcake like sprinkles. So I could do that here too. Let me think. Do I want to do that? Of course I do. Of course I do. So let me do a little dot, dot, dot here between the flag and sentiment, a couple dots by the end of the sentiment strip, and a couple in the top left by the leaves of my cupcake. And I'm gonna go through here, and you know what? I'm gonna pick out, I like this little heart shape. So let me place that little heart on top of one of my little glue dots. And here's another little heart. I will place that up here in the top left. And let's see, let me find another one. Oh, there's one. They're jumping away from me. Grab that one. So I've got a couple hearts here in the upper left. I don't have a whole lot of room up there. And then let me find some more. Here we go. I love these little hearts. They're so cute. So I've got 3 little hearts here between the flag and the sentiment. So 3 in the middle. And then I want to do a couple down towards the tail end of the sentiment. I'm not sure I have room for 3. It might look a little crowded. So I will just stick with the 2. There's 1. And I need one last one. Here we go. And I like that. That is so cute. Make sure, there we go. Everything's all straight, lined up. What do you think? How do you like it? Oh my goodness, I just looked at the clock and my hour is quickly running out. So I don't think I'm gonna have time to share my final bonus set of tags with you. So here's all the cards we made. And then I'm gonna leave you with a peek and a promise to create this tutorial and share it with you. So remember those little tags that we gutted earlier? I wanted to show you how you can transform those into a set of tags like this one. So here's a little close-up so you can see. Goodness, okay, that time went by quickly. So I guess all I have to say is thank you for spending your crafty time with me. I hope to see you again soon, but until next time, stay crafty.
Jessica Frost Ballas here, and I'm so excited to be teaching at the Crafty Meraki Cardmaker Connect virtual retreat. Today I'll be showing you how to make a bunch of simple cards using your cardstock scraps and the gorgeous Be Your Own Kind of Cupcake effortless artistry paper. So let's get started. I've created a ton of cards today with a very similar technique, so instead of going step by step on each card, I'm going to talk you through my process so that you can adapt it for the supplies you have in your own craft room. Unfortunately, I won't be joining you live today as I'll be in the middle of getting on a cruise ship in Alaska when this goes live, but I'll be checking in when I get back, so please leave me a message on social media if you have any questions. I love coloring and ink blending, but sometimes I just want to let someone else do the hard work for me, and the effortless artistry papers from Crafty Meraki are perfect for those days. This cute Be Your Own Kind of Cupcake pad has the most mouth-watering cupcakes colored by several talented crafters that create gorgeous cards in no time at all. To start, I die cut a bunch of the cupcakes with the coordinating dies. I chose a variety of cupcakes in different color palettes, and I encourage you to choose your favorites. I temporarily tape the die in place with a low-tack washi tape and then run it through my die cutting machine. I remove the cupcake die cuts, but keep the rest of the paper to use later for the other cupcakes or the sentiments. I love that you also get several copies of each page, so you can create a set of the same card or several sets with different images. You get a lot of bang for your buck with these effortless artistry pads, and you can even use their coloring as inspiration for your own. Once I'm done die cutting all of my cupcakes, I set the leftover papers and pad aside for later. You can see all the sentiments I'll be able to choose from. I'm going to be creating a variety of horizontal and vertically oriented cards, and you can see how these cupcakes provide a really nice focal point for an A2 card. And now it's time for some color. I have a swatch ring containing almost all of my colored cardstocks, as I have many from different brands and companies. For each cupcake, I look at the coloring and try to pull 3 to 5 cardstock colors that match different colors in the cupcake. For my lemon cupcake, I find a couple shades of yellow that match, an orange that matches the slice on top of the cupcake, and a green that matches the greenery. They don't have to be perfect matches, but they should be pretty close. Once I decide on the cardstock colors, I grab sheets of each color or scraps if I have them. I also grab the glitter cardstock included in the retreat kit, and I see if I can find a good match in those colors as well. Here I think that light green will be a good match. Then I take my paper cutter and cut random small strips of the various cardstocks. I keep each of the strips to under a ½ inch and try to vary them by color. I've layered a couple of cardstocks here to speed up the process. I'm also cutting full cardstock sheets here, but you can use any scraps you have. Now I have a mix of colors and sizes, and I just play around with different orders and patterns until I like the way the strips look. In general, I try to include one glittery strip in each card for a little sparkle, and I also try to keep my strips in odd numbers of 3 or 5. There's a lot of psychological information on this, but basically the eye tends to find patterns in odd numbers more pleasing than patterns in even. So this first card will use all 5 colors. Depending on the colors you chose, you could arrange them in an ombre pattern or arrange them by size or some combination of both. This arranging is all very subjective, but I usually try to make sure that the glitter paper isn't on the top or bottom or dead center if possible. I think it looks most interesting and eye-catching being a little offset. But as I continue creating, you'll see that I use different rules for my arrangements. Really, choose what you think looks best. We will all likely have slightly different shades of cardstock and slightly different strip sizes, so the perfect arrangement is the one that looks perfect to you. After I decide on the arrangement, I use low-tack tape to hold the strips in order side by side. Later I decided this step wasn't necessary, but it might be helpful to you if the strips are difficult to handle individually. When it comes to placing the strips, again, I tend to arrange them on the bottom or top of the card panel, but generally not in the middle. I use a ruler to help me line up this first set so that they're running straight across the panel. Later, I do a lot of diagonal arrangements, so I don't have to be quite so precise. You can see how I play around with arranging the cupcakes and sentiments until I find something I like. Then I apply a strip of double-sided adhesive to my card panel and trim off the excess. And this is why I decided to stop using the temporary tape to hold the strips. Holding the group of strips at the same time was a little difficult, and it ended up being easier to just add them one at a time. I peel the adhesive backing off half the strip to start and line up the green cardstock strip first, and then arrange the rest of the strips side by side. Then I peel the backing all the way off and continue adhering the strips. Again, this was way more difficult than just adding the strips one at a time, but you might find that you prefer it this way. Once the strips are all attached, I trim off the excess and set them aside with the matching cupcake. I also prefer using tape adhesive as I find it less messy than glue, but it is also much less forgiving when it comes to adjusting or moving a strip later. If you want more flexibility in adjusting the strips, then I recommend using a liquid glue. For my next card, I decide on a diagonal orientation. I arrange the strips again until I'm happy with the way it looks. I said earlier that I don't usually like working with even numbers, but I did try it here just to see what I thought. I kept the sparkly cardstock on the inside and mostly kept the strips in size order. Still not my favorite arrangement, but if you are limited in cardstock, you might try working in even combinations. But you can also repeat cardstocks to help give yourself more strips to work with. In that situation, I just avoid putting the same colors side by side. Again, I apply a strip of adhesive to the card panel and then add my strips. Once they're adhered, I trim off the overhang. I ran into a little problem here where my adhesive didn't cover the very end of a few strips and I didn't want them peeling up. So I took a leftover scrap of cardstock, applied a thin layer of glue to one end, and then carefully slid it between the cardstock strips and the cardstock panel to apply some glue to the back of the strips. I find this allows you to have a little more control over the amount of glue and leads to less mess. I haven't adhered my cupcakes yet, but you can see what my plan is right now. I also keep all the remaining strips of cardstock for later. Now what happens if you don't have colored cardstock or don't have a lot of it? You can do the exact same process, but with whatever coloring medium you have on hand: markers, colored pencils, watercolor paints, etc. Here I've grabbed 5 Copic markers that match my cupcake, and I cut several strips of white cardstock. Then I color the various strips using the different markers. It's super quick to do this with the chisel nib of your Copic markers, but you can also color it with the side of your brush nib if that's all you have. Once all of your strips are colored, you follow the same process as before and arrange the strips onto your card panel in whatever order you choose. I use 3 strips here and adhere them on a low diagonal. Again, I use a piece of temporary tape to hold them in place and then add adhesive directly to my card base. I adhere the strips and then trim off any excess. It's a different look from colored cardstock, but just as effective, so use what you have access to. It's kinda neat how the very same cupcake looks so different on the 2 different backgrounds. For the next cards, I'm going to be showing you the colored cardstocks I chose and the final arrangement of the strips, but not necessarily the entire arrangement process, just to speed things up. I feel like shades of green work nicely for this next cupcake. I always try to make sure I get one dark color that matches the shading on the coloring and one light shade that matches the highlights. Then the other colors fall somewhere between. And for this card, I'm also using the green glitter cardstock. I cut a bunch of different strips and then use a ruler to draw a line on my card panel. I add adhesive and then trim off the overhang. I removed the adhesive backing before I finalized my arrangement, which I don't recommend, but it ended up working okay here. You can also see that I started adhering the strips one at a time now. It's much easier to handle one strip at a time and they line up nicely. I used 5 strips for this panel, and you can see that I ended up using the glitter cardstock twice. Again, my next card uses a diagonal pattern and only 3 strips of cardstock. After adhering, I trim off the excess and save the rest of the strips for later. And here are the colors I chose for the rest of my cupcakes. For the patriotic cupcake, I used shades of blue and red to match the berries and blue glitter cardstock. The next cupcake uses shades of pink and red with a green accent and pink glitter. I chose not to use the frosting colors for this cupcake or the last to keep the colors more bright and vibrant. My last cupcake uses pinks and yellows with pink glitter cardstock to match the swirled frosting. And now here are all my leftover strips. Since there were a couple of rainbow cupcakes in the Effortless Artistry paper pad, I decided to create a rainbow background with my leftovers. I start by applying adhesive all over my A2 panel. Then I start a little off-center with my lightest pink strip. I vary the size of the strips and proceed in my own version of ombre rainbow order. I also add in the glitter cardstock wherever possible. When I get to the purple, I start over with pink. As I get to the end of the rainbow, I'm careful to adhere the cardstock strips closer to one end of the strip or the other so that I'll be able to trim off the excess and use that on top of the card panel. You can also see that I adhered one of the strips in the wrong order and carefully peeled it off. Thankfully, it only left a little behind and I was able to cover over it. Once I was totally finished, I trimmed off the overhang. I really love how this rainbow background turned out. I die cut the 3 rainbow cupcakes and a square of white cardstock cut to 3 3/4 by 5 inches. Obviously, I chose cardstock colors based on the cupcakes I picked, but alternatively, you could also choose cupcakes based on the cardstock scraps you have in your stash or the options you have in your coloring mediums. This is a great way to use up those scraps and work with what you have. And now it's time to start putting everything together. I use my tape runner to adhere each cupcake to the panel. I vary where I place the cupcake based on the different cardstock stripes. You can choose one end or the other or try for the center. I only did the center placement a few times so that I didn't have to mess with trying to get it perfectly in the middle. I just love how these cupcakes match my cardstock panels. It looks like they were just made for each other. I ended up skipping my marker colored panel just to keep these all cardstock, but you'd do the same thing if you hand colored each strip. To finish these cards, I trim a bunch of the leftover sentiments into strips. I choose sentiments of varying length to fit my different panels. You could also use the sentiment word dies included in the kit. Once I have all of my sentiments, I just play around until I find sentiments I like for each panel. Luckily, there are way more sentiments than there are cupcakes, so I can cut as many as I need. After I match a sentiment to each card panel, I add foam mounting tape to the back of each sentiment and then adhere them. Again, I vary the placement of the sentiments to partially cover the cardstock strips or the cupcake or to go above or below. And here are all of my finished cards. I love how they turned out, and I hope you do too. I look forward to seeing the color combos you choose for your cards, and I hope you'll tag me in any photos you share online. My Instagram handle is Jessica Frost Ballas, and I can't wait to see what you create. And that's it for me today. I'm sorry I wasn't able to join you live, but please feel free to reach out on social media if you have any questions. I hope you have an amazing weekend filled with lots of crafty Meraki creations, and until next time, have a fantastic day and happy crafting. Bye!